Hare Krishna, humble obeisances, Bhakti Vasudev Maharaj. It's an honor to have you on the Monks podcast.
My pleasure.
I have read some of your articles online and we interacted also previously on phone.
I was born in Nigeria. I met the devotees in Nigeria. I started preaching in Nigeria. And in 2004, I was invited by Georgia Political Science Association in America to present a research paper at their conference. And then in 2005, again, I was invited by New York Political Science Association, North Carolina Political Science Association, Pennsylvania Political Science Association, the American Social Science Association, and University of Southern Mississippi for presentations at their conferences. And within these 5 conferences, I have to deal with that in a span of 6 weeks. So that was very intensive. So after those presentations, some devotees solicited that I stay in America to help with academic preaching. And that's how I eventually became a citizen, American citizen, and I started living in America.
It's amazing how you have been able to present the Bhakti philosophy in the contemporary vocabulary and reach circles that previously we haven't reached. So I thought we could discuss about the aspect today of, based on your experiences, how to share Bhakti wisdom in today's leadership and management circles.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes.
I think that, something, it's an interesting field. One of those things that I think the ISKCON devotees have not, there's been a gap in this area, especially with leadership and management, using the Vaishnava philosophy and providing solutions to leadership and management issues in the global village. So that's what I do. And what happens is that there are so many constructs and concepts in the teachings of Srila Prabhupada and the Vedic literature in general that address contemporary issues in leadership and the management domain. And so what it requires is one has to be very broad-minded in both fields, especially management, academic, and be very broad in terms of knowledge acquisition in the Vedic literature.
Oh, okay.
It's been an exciting.
Lost you for a minute. You said broad in terms of contemporary knowledge and Vedic knowledge.
Yeah, broad knowledge, academic knowledge in the field of management and leadership. Leadership is subsumed in management. Leadership is a discipline, it's a specialty in management. So one has to have broad information culture of leadership and management, and at the same time have very broad information culture of the Vedic philosophy.
Yes, Maharaj.
Then you'll be able to marry both.
Yes, that is true. I think in our movement, His Holiness Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj was a pioneer in this field, and then you are carrying on his legacy. So can you share some of how you interacted with him and got inspired to embark in this area?
Yeah, that's an interesting, a very intriguing question or comment or request, because keep in mind I was born in Africa, and he had requested me to do this type of preaching when I was a young brahmachari, and I started it. But what I realized was that instruction of the guru might be very difficult. Some of the instructions might be very difficult, but the instruction of the guru, especially the difficult instructions, they are encapsulated with empowerment. So I see myself, and I continue to see myself as an instrument by being used by Bhakti Theater in accomplishing his works. Because I can give you an example. I remember when I was going to from one university to the other doing academic preaching, because he told me specifically that I should do something, that not everyone is able to do. That's what he told me. He said, go and preach to the professors, not to students, go and preach to the professors. Okay. So it was a challenge. It was a challenging
This was which year, Maharaj? Roughly?
This was in the early 200s. I think either 201 or 202. 2002 or 2001. I can't remember precisely, but he sent me an email giving me that instruction.
And this was based on your previous academic background or your interactions with him, or how did he direct you in this particular way?
Before he gave this instruction, I was a media preacher. I was publishing papers, doing the same thing in newspapers, magazines, tabloids, and journals. And so when he saw those potentials, he gave me the order that I should go to preach to the professors. And at that time also the same. So at that time also the same thing I was doing, except that it was in the secular world, not in the not academic circles. So he saw all of those skillful ways that I was using the teachings of Prabhupada in addressing social, political, and economic issues. And subsequently, he gave that instruction. And so, yeah, I took the instruction, hook, line, and sinker, and I made amazing, I got amazing results, because the very first, and he later was surprised himself how I became so successful in this, in the academic preaching, publishing in peer-reviewed journals and presentations at conferences. Before even I got my PhD in management and leadership, I remember going to some conferences and presenting papers, and during the question and answers, the professors, they'll be addressing me as Dr. Das.
That's interesting.
Because I will present the papers in a very, a high standard. And so I remember one time I went to one conference with one devotee, and that conference, it was funny. So that devotee was sitting with us in the on the panel program. I mean, in our sections, but we, the presenters, we are on the panel program, panel seat. And so I was presenting my paper. I think that paper was something a little bit highfalutin. And so I was presenting my paper, and it was on kleptomaniacs. And one of the elderly professors, I think I had spoken for 3 minutes or 4 minutes. And one of the elderly professors, he raised his hand. He signaled by raising his hand. He had some issues to address. So he said, Das, can you come down to our level? Can you come down to our level? So at that time, I was not having a PhD. And so that devotee, he couldn't contain himself. So he busted out laughing. And so even the professors, they saw my skills, and they were very friendly. One thing I found with academic people or academicians is that, ordinarily speaking, if you don't have their degrees, or you don't have their skills, you don't have their competencies, they despise you. I remember a case in Boston, one devotee, he had no degree, and he went to Harvard Harvard University. Harvard University is one of the Ivy Leagues in the US. So he went to Harvard University. They were distributing back to Garden. And so one young gentleman, he alighted from his car, and he gave him a magazine. And this young gentleman, he turned to him and said, "Don't you know I am Harvard professor?"
Okay.
In other words, what have you got to tell me? I'm a Harvard professor. He said he was demoralized. He turned away from him, and the whole day he couldn't distribute one magazine. So what does this tell on us? It basically brings to bear that we have to be aware the people we are dealing with. And I've encountered situations similar to that experience with that guy. I remember I went to one university, to the head of department that was also in Africa, when I was still in Africa. I went to one university to the head of department for philosophy and religion, and I requested him that, if I could talk to his students. And then I dressed like a fanatical brahmachari, dhoti, tilak, and everything. I went to this professor, and it's a Christian university.
Oh God. Okay.
So he looked at me up, he looked down my feet, and he just told me, "We don't do this here."
Oh God. Okay. So what you're saying,
I paused.
we need to earn respect in their eyes before we can actually enter into their circles. And one way to enter respect is by either learning their language or getting their degrees or comporting ourselves in a way that they will find at least acceptable, if not respectable.
Sure, that's it. Exactly. And so,
Yes, ma'am.
so when he tried to mess me up in that way, when he despised me in that way, I paused a little, and then because I was also pretty young, in my early 30s. So I paused a little, and I leaned forward and told him, mildly, softly, that, "Excuse me, sir, better have 25 publications in peer-reviewed journals in 3 years." So he was taken aback. He was shocked. And he softly said, "Can I see some of those journal publications?"
Okay.
So the next day, Chaitanya, listen, the next day, I came with only three journals, and showed it to him. I flipped through the first one, I showed him my paper. I flipped through the second one, I showed him my paper, and the third one, I showed him my paper. And those 3 journals were from the highest university in the country. But then they turned the tables around. You know what he said? His response to that was that, when are you coming to make your presentation?
Oh God. Okay. Oh, okay. That's amazing. So Maharaj, what kind of topics do you take when you get present in mainstream journals? So like earlier mentioned kleptomania. So that's an interesting subject. So how do you connect that with spirituality?
Yeah, kleptomania or kleptocracy, government leaders, they steal from their country's, national purse. So kleptomania, simply a government leader who steals with his pen and his brain. And we have a solution. And what is that solution? Is what basically I present as a solution to that. But you keep in mind that I have to discuss with them all about kleptocracy. Okay. I will make references to other scholars who have written on kleptocracy and all those things, and then provide a solution.
Okay.
Because in academic writings, especially in management science, you have to identify a problem.
Yeah.
Then you have to provide a solution to that problem. And even before you provide a solution to that problem, you have to have a research question. What is it that you are going to investigate? And the purpose of your investigation, the purpose of your study. Before you come to literature review, and then you generate the strategies that have developed from your investigation about the solution to this very problem. So we have a number of cases where we could always pick up some concept or construct from purpose writing and address these issues. Like the case of kleptomania or kleptocracy.
Okay.
I use a basic simple construct that we use every day, and that is the chanting of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. The chanting of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra purifies the heart. But I have to use a language that is acceptable to the professors, because chanting of Hare Krishna Mahamantra is a purely religious conception. And so these are people who don't believe in religion. In most cases, I deal with political scientists. Of course, in the early days, I was also dealing with professors in philosophy and religion. I refer to the Hare Krishna Mahamantra as sonic therapeutic intervention. And these are very, very alluring terms. These are very alluring terms to the academicians, and they accept. But I will explain even the 32 syllables of the mantra, and explain all these stuff. And by Krishna's grace, by the grace of Bhakti Swami and Srila Prabhupada, they've been accepting our presentations, publishing them, and then relating with us as one of them. That we have a mission on their very grounds.
So this is very creative. So you are saying that if you just learn to articulate, so the 3 steps, if I understand right, first is that we study the issue properly, and then we show them that we know the subject, that we are not just we know the subject, and then we present our solution, but in terms that don't seem sectarian or religious. So, and is that right? And then do we need to quantify this?
Yeah. You're right.
Normally, say, how do you quantify this? Can we show that, say, some people, some leaders, they had the sonic therapeutic intervention and they became better leaders or something like that? Won't they require some quantification?
Yeah. Because scientific means, you have to quantify and qualify.
So how would you do that?
That is where you show your expertise. So for instance, I did some work on political sex as conventional morality approach. Now, this is a work that is very good for brahmacharis. And because I don't advertise my works, or I don't advertise myself, a number of people may not know, but it's a very good work. If it's a very good publication for brahmacharis.
What is the publication?
It's that post political sex scandals.
Sex scandals, okay.
- post-conventional morality approach. Okay. Now, in this very publication, in this very study, I did some work, and I even interviewed practitioners of sonic therapy or the chanting of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. So I did some investigation on that and brought that in. And what is required in scholarship or in the management sciences is research, especially the honor scholars who go out to the field and do some research instead of just writing an essay.
Okay.
So I incorporate that research into the work. But you know what? People who are, or scholars who are addicted to illicit sex, they didn't like it. But then the same work
Okay. Yeah.
The same work was very much is still very much cherished by those who are a little bit pious, because the study is giving you an understanding how you could become free from getting involved in political scandal and losing your job, losing your reputation and all this stuff. So some research study was also inputted there, and it made a lot of positive difference, and it was published. In fact, that journal, I published it with one multidisciplinary journal, and it's there on the net that anyone can have access to read. Political sex scandals, post-conventional morality approach.
Okay. So this is fascinating, Maharaj. Now, so when you said you interviewed those who are practicing sonic therapeutic intervention, that means you basically interviewed leaders in the devotee community?
Yeah, people who are practicing. Not necessarily leaders, devoted leaders, but devotees who are professionals and who have been chanting. And so what do they gain from this? Does it help them to, does it help to protect them from getting involved in illicit sexual relationships at work or whatever?
Okay, so this is based solely on their self-assessment?
Yeah.
If they say that this is protecting me, then that itself is considered enough.
Of course, that is a qualitative research. Qualitative research means, you want to get, that's a qualitative research, and it could be approached from a phenomenological perspective. Phenomenological approach means that someone has some experience. That approach of study in the management science.
Oh, so you don't need like a control group, like what is
control group. That is another aspect to it. A quantitative research requires, in some cases, require a control group. But it's not all research that you need a control group.
Oh, okay.
Yes, some of the research, you will only interview people, and some of them, you will have to make a control, you will have to have a control group to make an assessment, to validate what you are professing. In other words, you have to have some hypotheses and all the rest of them. Oh, but in the qualitative approach, you don't need a control group in most cases. You don't need hypotheses in most cases. You have a problem you are addressing. You have research questions you are addressing, and you have to be able to align the research question with the problem statement and, of course, the purpose of your study.
Oh, okay. So you don't even necessarily need to document a transformation in people. Like, say, you discuss somebody's case 5 years ago, and now 5 years later, whether that person has transformed their behavior. Even that is not so much required. It is just a self-assessment is considered enough.
It's in some cases that, you see, there are cases, there are studies that you need a backlog. Let's say 10 years ago, a follow-up of study. That is called a longitudinal study.
Yes, longitudinal study, yes.
So, but research is there's so many approaches to research, and depending on what you choose to use as your method and approach you use, that keep in mind, this same problem statement could be approached quantitatively, could be approached qualitatively. You could use a quantitative method, you could use a qualitative method, or mixed methods approach. You see, this is how we were trained, and you were asked to deal with this problem, deal with this research problem, problem statement. Deal with this problem using qualitative method. Deal with this, then the same problem, you can deal with it using a quantitative method, where you use control groups and all the rest of them.
Yes, Maharaj. So then now this is clear. So when you use sonic therapeutic intervention, so then now that could involve, say, sonic can involve any kind of sound. So when you specifically say recommend the Hare Krishna mantra, so doesn't that content of the sound bring in some sectarian connotations? So why this particular sound? How do you explain that?
Yeah, that's an interesting stuff. You explain that because, I mean, to explain that based on the fact that there have been studies conducted with this very 32 syllable mantra. For instance, Wolf in 1999 at Florida State University
David Brian Wolf did that here.
Conducted a research on the effect of the Hare Krishna mantra on stress and depression or something like that, and the gunas. So that was a quantitative research where he had control groups.
Yes.
So those type of establishments, I mean, the people, for the non-scholars, non-scholars in our movement, they don't know the potency of that type of work, because it is something that stays on. Even after being a current study, it becomes a classical study, or because you may have a contemporary research within the past 5 years. After 20 years, people still make a reference to that work, especially when you have it quantified or qualified in those type of systems, and you have done all of these works published. So that becomes is an authority. Prabhupada also had demonstrated the potency of the mantra, changing hippies to happies, potheads, and drug addicts to, saintly people. So you can also make a reference to the database, citing Prabhupada as one of the researchers or one of the authorities who have used this mantra in changing lives or in transforming people. See, when you have that, when you have the technical know-how, the whole of the Vedic literature becomes, a tool in your hand to be able to provide a solution to some problems in the material world. And our devotees are not doing enough, because even in the management science, we find people who are not of the Vaishnava tradition, especially from India, the scholars, they have done so much of work on the Bhagavad Gita. They've done, just Google Bhagavad Gita management. You will see works that have been published. Our devotees, in most cases, are not in those areas. I have a number of friends in India who are young PhD holders in management, and they are very much interested in my works, and some of them, they're trying to learn how to be able to bring in the Vaishnava philosophy into their works. My research shows that non-Vaishnavas or non-ISKCON devotees, non-Vaishnavas, India, majority of people read Bhagavad Gita. I can't say everybody, because I've not conducted research. We are careful with choice of words in in management science. So majority of people have read Bhagavad Gita, and I've seen some people have written. I remember the case. Even I bought that book. I don't know where it's been, over 10 years ago. I bought that book in India, and Bhagavad Gita on leadership. So this gentleman, he was pointing to some of the slokas in the Gita, which are suitable for leadership development. Yeah, so we
So this was an academic book, or means this is an academic book, or it is like a popular press?
It's not an academic book.
Okay.
A professor wrote it, but somebody who just interested in being a publisher or being an author.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
But I've also seen some professor, Professor Emeritus from Harvard University. He did some leadership book based on Bhagavad Gita, some Bhagavad Gita sutras. Yeah, so people are doing all of this. They are not your devotees. So they may interpret Krishna to the general mass of people in a different way.
Yeah.
So our devotees should also brace up in the field of the management science to see how we are portraying the image of Krishna as a personality, a supreme personality of Godhead to the masses of to the public, and that is easily done in the academy, because something that is published in academic journal, it becomes an authority.
Yes.
And so those people who do not even have allegiance to Krishna Bhakti, they are doing this type of wonderful service. I say wonderful service because they are making at least Bhagavad Gita known to the masses or to the public.
So quoting Bhagavad Gita also is not a problem. It is not seen as a religious book, or how do you position the Bhagavad Gita?
In those cases, they position the Bhagavad Gita as a religious text, a classical text, and a text for management support systems.
Oh, okay. For management support systems.
Management support systems.
Oh, okay. That's interesting. Okay. So when
So the scholars are very good at word geography. Papa said, scholars are very good at word geography, you know?
Yes.
But in some cases, Bhagavad Gita is presented, those who are coming from religious background, Bhagavad Gita is presented purely as a religious text, because you're talking to a religious audience.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is because many times devotees or people who are favorable to Bhakti, they approach me and they say that, yes, yesterday I was talking with one person who wants to do his PhD in Bhagavad Gita and leadership. And he's asking me whether there's existing research and how I can go ahead. So quality is a very good field.
It's a good field.
Yes. And overall, so now, say the sonic therapeutic intervention can mean chanting the holy names. What other strategies or what other practices can we introduce?
Another thing, one of my current research, I just submitted a proposal for a leadership conference that is coming up at my university, World University in the United States. So one of that, if you read my published works, especially on kleptocracy, you see the different constructs that I use. For instance, in the Bhagavad Gita, the series of the two texts that Krishna was addressing issues of why people act against a better judgment by contemplating on the object of the senses, one develops attachment. Yeah, so I use those two texts, that one and the next text, as a model in demonstrating why people are involved in financial fraud.
Okay. That's amazing.
Because the point is, you see, there are three levels of knowledge. One, the primary level of knowledge is that we read the Vedic literatures.
Okay.
We acquire knowledge. We know what is bhakti, what is not, what is good, and what is bad, what is reactive, what is proactive. And then the next phase is what scholars have, the discussion of scholars on that very theme. Like we have our acharyas, they made some commentaries.
Okay.
They have commentaries on Bhagavad Gita and all these things. So that is the next level, second level. And then the third level, that is called contemporary issues. And then the third level is application. Now, so we have from theory to contemporary issues and then to the application. Now, on the application level, that is when you talk about, how to use what you have productively to address issues. In the management science, we don't just talk on essays. What is the problem you are trying to address? So it's different from, giving a class, a guitar class, repeating.
Okay, so
repeating is a very good thing.
Yeah, so the problem you are addressing, say, in that case is greed, or what did you say? Dhyayato Vishayan Pumsa, the 262, you used it for addressing?
Addressing financial fraud.
Financial fraud, okay. So that's fascinating.
Why, for instance, why I use that and another theories, the general theory of crime, in my conceptual framework. And the both frameworks explain, one is a purely spiritual conceptual framework from the point of view of Krishna or from the Bhagavad Gita. Another is from criminology. So you see where the devotee academic has to be broad-based in his information culture. So I use these two constructs, these two frameworks as my conceptual framework in that study. And, it sounds so amazing, so amazing, Now I use those two verses as a model.
Yeah.
So preaching with back to spirituality, back to philosophy, it requires a lot of self-intellectual interrogation. It's completely different from sitting down to chant 108 rounds. Every time you have to be cracking your brain, you have to be innovative. It's complete. I know a number of PhD holders in our movement, MBAs, DBAs, and even, a number of PhDs in psychology. But how do you use your academic acquisition? How do you bring in your spiritual ideologies into your presentation? That is the challenge. And not everyone is able to do that.
Yes, Maharaj, that's true.
At best, you can publish in your area to be able to get publications and get promotion and all this. But how do you bring the Bhakti philosophy? How do you switch in the Bhakti concepts and constructs into your presentation? That is a skill and competency that you need to be empowered to function with. You need to be able to acquire that information, perhaps through the mercy of your spiritual master, through the mercy. Because in my case, I was directly given an instruction to do this. So I don't see myself as being the doer. I see myself as being just an instrument in the hands of my spiritual master and in the hands of Prabhupada. And if I tell you stories, some of the stories, you will laugh and almost roll down from your chair. I'll give you an example.
One minute, if you don't mind. I just wanted to go back to your three-level analysis. So you said 3 levels of knowledge. First is like study of scripture, then connection.
That's the theoretical understanding.
Theoretical. Then correlation with contemporary issues, and then application for solving. Application means solving problems.
Sure.
What can you offer as a solution to a problem?
Yeah. Based on the theoretical, based on the theories that you have learned in the Gita, and based on the commentaries of the acharyas, integrating both the theories and the commentaries of the acharyas, how do you apply that to solving a problem in a real world situation?
Yes. So then, I understand this. So then you said that, say, financial fraud, that's a problem in the real world. And
yeah,
then
I'm just giving that as an example.
Yeah, so surely. And then, so Dhyayato Vishayan Pumsa 262 is the scriptural verse. And then so how you apply it is by talking about how contemplation, say, kindles greed, and then how it moves from there. Okay. And then what is the corrective measure, or what is the solution in that? How would you present that?
Allow me to laugh, of course. Yeah, it's intriguing because, I mean, your questions are very intriguing. They give me a sense of humor, and then, you know, opportunity to be able to explore more on, you know, the type of you know, explorations that have been involving over the years. So, yeah, Lord Krishna mentioned in those two verses how one gets into trouble.
That's true. Okay.
Financial fraud is a crime. How do you become involved in a crime like financial fraud? Based on Krishna's ideology, based on Krishna's framework, by contemplating on financial fraud, how to get money, quick fix.
Yes.
By contemplating on that, you can develop attachment to it.
Yeah, but what would be the solution here then? And what would be the solution? Not contemplate? What would be the solution?
Well, it leads you to a problem. So you can either change your thought pattern. Your object of contemplation is the major issue. Tell me your object of contemplation, and I will tell you where you are going, where it's going to land. So the idea is that we have to have, you know, purified contemplations, association, even mentally, with the object of the senses could trigger situations where we will act against our better judgment. Therefore, we have to be careful about what we contemplate on.
So you can use words like object, sense objects and everything in the academic world also?
Yeah, but I don't use sense objects. I use I use terms like sensory modalities.
Sensory modalities.
Yeah.
That's clever. I think you yourself enjoy coming up with words like these to present our concepts.
But these are the words that are applicable in psychology and the management sciences. Sensory modalities, it means the sense objects, but it is in a more sophisticated, you know, application.
You know, I remember.
And the scholars, they want things sophisticated. When the things are sophisticated, then they say, "Oh, you're a real scholar."
That's amazing. You know, I remember I read one of Bhakti Maharaj's books. So there he talks about basically sense control, but the title of that chapter was Harnessing Sexual Energy for World Peace.
Okay.
Brilliant title.
Yeah, because you have to bring up something that addresses real world situation. Because the philosophy is there, okay? But how does that apply to solving a real world problem? So that is how he wrote his books.
Yes, Maharaj. Maharaj, just going to a little bigger picture now, that, you know, with respect to, say, academic outreach, there are different areas in which outreach can be done. So I have noticed that there are some devotees who are interested in the field of science and spirituality. There are some devotees who go into maybe religious studies directly, and then they go into They may of course go through history approach or sociology approach or something like that. But it seems that this approach of, say, going through leadership studies or political science approach, this doesn't seem to be have been charted by many devotees. Of course, we don't have many devotees in academia itself, but still, science and spirituality seems to be like a well-known field. Also, religious studies is one field, but this political science approach has not been tapped much. So, are there devotees in this field, or if there are not, say if some devotee wants to enter in this field, what would be the trajectory they follow?
You see, we have devotees, like even in India, we have devotees who are even professors of management, but they're not doing what I'm doing. They don't have those type of skills and competencies.
Okay.
So, yeah, there are devotees who are professors, even right here in India. I know a number of them who are professors in management, who are, PhDs in management. So that people need to get some specific advice or instruction from their authorities. You see, because one of those things is that if we just choose to do something, I didn't choose to do what I am doing. And that is why even the results, I don't claim the results. Because you can ask any professor, have they heard of someone who have published 25 publications in academic journals in 3 years? Very rare. But that period was like a crazy zone for me. Sometimes I'll be chanting japa in early morning period, and some idea shoots into my head, and I'll drop the japa and run upstairs to start writing. So it was like a danger zone, like a war front. But the result is what basically stands as, a legacy today. And so we need to work with our spiritual masters. And those spiritual masters, you see, one thing with Bhakti Swami Maharaj was that he has expertise in talent management. He engaged people according to their proclivity, according to their talent. He was also very perceptive. He will figure out, he will perceive what the background you're coming from and how to engage you. The potentials you have and how to engage you. So in that way, it becomes easy. And you see, I was a temple president, and at some point in time, I had to resign from the presidency. And devotees were agitating that, bring Basudev back to be president because he's very productive in, generating funds and building temple. So I remember him announcing just after Mongarati. Normally, he used to read something and then make some announcement. So that day, he said, asking Vasudev to become a president again is wasting Vasudev's time, wasting Krishna's time, wasting Guru's time. So that stopped the devotees from agitating because he wanted me to do a particular thing. And the devotees, we are only thinking about the immediate thing the results they can get from this guy. Yeah. So we need to work. My point is, we need to work with people, our leaders, who have expertise in talent management and being able to engage people based on their proclivities.
Yeah, that's true.
It makes the journey very swift.
Yeah. Two things over here. One is that, as you said, often we have certain preconceived definitions, not predefined ideas of success. So like, say, as you said, raise funds or distribute books, which are all important, but then those are quick results, or in some ways quicker. And in this field, the results are subtler. So first of all, we need some supportive leadership who will actually recognize the value of this kind of service.
Exactly.
Yes. Now, in your case, say, you were close to Maharaj, knew you were close to you are close to him also. But nowadays, in our movement, we have become very big. We have a limited number of spiritual masters. And quite often, devotees don't get such customized guidance from any senior devotee or leave alone their spiritual master. So often devotees have to take their individual initiative. Of course, they may take blessings and something from the spiritual master, but it's unlikely that they will get a specific instruction. So in some ways, the initiative seems to come more on the devotee. How do I engage myself in a way that is the most productive for Krishna? So
yeah, to address that issue, still the devotees, for instance, if someone, our leaders need to be trained. That's one major point. A number of our leaders, we tend to be too myopic. We want to do things that give us immediate result. In America, they say quick fix.
Yes. That's true.
And I've also seen devotees who are doing a PhD. I remember one Indian gentleman in Chicago some years ago. I didn't even remember, but then when he graduated, he was telling someone, he came to New York and he was telling someone about how I helped him. So this devotee, again, the way we preach in our communities is very anti-academic.
And it's not academic.
Yeah, I'll give you an example.
Yeah, please.
I was in Delhi temple, Sri Radha Parthasarthi temple. I used to go there. In fact, in America, I used to tell devotees that I'm more of a Delhian than a New Yorker, because in Delhi, I used to stay in Delhi temple for a long time. So, I mean, years. So, my I got Bhagavatam class, and when I was going to finish the class, I mentioned some things about motivating people based on their inclinations, based on what Guru has instructed them, based on their talent, and based on their competencies and skills. And after the class, and that is completely adverse to most of the type of preaching that we do. So after the class, one young lady, she came to the guest house to see me with another of my friends. That friend, she and her husband. So this young lady, she came with that lady to see me, and then she came to me she came to thank me. I said, to thank me for what? I don't even know you. What did I do that you come to thank me? She said, she's a disciple of Gopal Krishna Maharaj. She said she received an instruction from our Guru Maharaj, Gopal Krishna Maharaj, to do a doctorate. She's on the doctorate program, but the preaching that she was hearing around, it was completely counterproductive to our efforts. In other words, it's like she was a Maya. But this is what the Guru had told him to do. I told her to do. So I said, well, we have this in all places, that people, they will like to do, and what the Guru has asked you to do, or what you are capable of doing. So we have to change our mood and be a little bit more. The leaders have to change, the preachers have to change their mood and be a little bit more, more outbound, instead of just being too, inbound only. We should see how the society will grow based on a bigger population living outside, who are grihastas, that not everyone is going to be a pujari. Everyone is not Brahmanically cultured. There are some people who are interested in learning, and the children, those who are giving birth to children, they have to see how they don't just push all of their kids to the temple to go and be, full-time devotees, or just to go to Gurukul and end up there, because, not everyone is going to be satisfied with just being a pujari. This movement, Golokera Premadan, Harinam Sankirtan, this movement is coming from the spiritual world, and people who are part of this movement, they are coming from different dimensions. The preachers of this movement must understand this basic fact and not be monolithic in their preaching programs.
It's beautiful.
We should see
yes,
how we are encouraging our communities to invest in productive ways in motivating their families to become higher achievers. Because I give you an example in this respect. Now, when I went to South Africa one year, a young couple hosted me. And the both of them, they had, one of the husband was a energy management scientist. The wife was a computer scientist. The wife was working at that time with a computer research industry. So she was just in that office. She was not preaching. She was just in her work as a computer research scientist. But the whole of the office, they know her as a completely different young, beautiful lady. Completely different. Because she doesn't smoke, drink, eat meat or fish or eggs. So they see her as someone very, very in their office. She didn't preach. Just see the value of planting a devotee in an office of elites. One day, another of us teach her what she is practicing. That's how she got to teach that lady devotional service, Bhakti, teaching her how to chant, how to have a feeding pattern of life and all these things. So during the breaks, they will go to some corner of the compound and then they will be chanting there together. Just by having someone in an office of elites whose life is completely different. And just by her presence, she made a devotee in that office. And therefore, we have to see how we are encouraging people to go ahead and not create a barricade that, like a ceiling that, oh, no, this is where this is where you have to go. This is the level you have to be. So that devotee in Chicago, he was doing a PhD in some science field, I think electrical engineering or something like that. And I don't know what transpired, but I went to Chicago, and then he approached me that he wants to drop out from the program. The boy he came from India. And then I said, see, whatever you want to do about your studies, I know that that's your choice, but understand that you came here with a mission. You came from India to Chicago with a mission, and your parents are expecting you to accomplish that mission. Now, whatever challenges you're having in your PhD program, don't drop out. You make sure that you persist and finish this program. Then you'll be more useful to your parents, your family, and your community, and more useful to the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. So I left him. I gave my words and I left him. He went ahead. He finished his program. And one time he came to New York, and he was telling, the person he was speaking to was my personal assistant. He's doing a PhD in a doctorate in finance. So he was discussing with that boy, a black boy, and then he told him that, oh, this is what Vasudev Maharaj did to me when I was doing my studies. So the boy told me, I said, I don't even know the guy. So my point is that we should not limit ourselves so much, because any devotee and their resources are useful to the upliftment and the spreading of Lord Chaitanya's mission.
Yes, Maharaj. This is a beautiful story. Thank you for sharing that. And so this is another important point, that, as you said, we have a almost anti-academic ethos. That means, or you could say anti-achiever ethos, that rather than encouraging devotees to engage their talents and move forward, often we expect them to just directly contribute to the movement in certain standard ways. So do you feel that now within the institutional framework, it is possible for people to get that space? Like, say, now you are in Saffron, and you were given by your spiritual master the instruction, and with that you got some space also for doing it. So there is sometimes some devotees feel that the institution it sometimes suppresses individual initiative, and when one wants to do something which is, you could say, somewhat innovative, go into uncharted territory, then sometimes one doesn't get the necessary encouragement. So in your experiences as well as in your advice to others, how would you encourage, how would you suggest that individuals with this kind of maybe academic zeal or in general some special talents, how can they navigate that path forward?
Yeah. My advice to such people is that if they are living in the temple, they must have to coordinate their ideas with their authorities.
Okay.
Now, if they are not living in the temple, I mean, like my case, I was a brahmachari, but this idea was imposed on me by my guru, okay? And I remember it was imposed, and he told me that the service I've given to you, I know it's difficult, but if you don't do it, you will not be happy. I mean, like a curse. He told me that. He said, this is a very difficult task.
Oh God.
But if you don't do it, you will not be happy. That's what he told me. That's what he told me. So the relationships we have with our authorities may be different. And their intentions of the authority, the foresight, their vision, and their goals for us may be different. But then the idea is that if we are living in the Vaishnava community in a temple, whatever innovative ideas we have to be able to work it out with authorities. That is what makes an institution. I mean, it's like you work in a company, you have an innovative idea, you discuss it with your supervisor or with your boss, and then you should be able to convince him about your innovative idea.
Okay.
So we may have a good idea, but we don't have that potency, or we don't have that zeal to be able to sell that idea to someone in a convincing way. And then we think, oh, he's oppressing me.
That's beautiful. That's very mature, Maharaj. So first you mentioned how leaders shouldn't be so myopic, but then now you are also placing the responsibility on the individuals, that we have to be able to, in a sense, market our ideas effectively, rather than simply blaming the leaders for not giving scope. But we have to learn to market our ideas. After all, if we are going to the outer world, we'll have to market the ideas there. So if we can't market it to devotees, then if you can't explain it to our authorities, how likely are we to be able to explain to others?
All right.
So, Maharaj, we lost a little time in between because of that network issue. So I don't want to extend you beyond your time. How much time do we have? Then accordingly, I'll plan the next few questions.
2 questions is fine.
Okay. Yes, Maharaj. Thank you. So now you mentioned earlier that that even those scholars who have interacted Bhagavad Gita with management, they have also done some service, although they may not have exactly given the tradition's understanding of Krishna. So this is quite an inclusive approach. There is one understanding that we should be introducing the Bhagavad Gita exactly as it is presented in the tradition. But another understanding is that at least Bhagavad Gita is coming into people's intellectual horizons, and they're at least aware of it. So to what extent have you seen this positive negative effects? Let's say sometimes people present Bhagavad Gita in an innovative way, but then they may go too far. So are there any guidelines you would like to suggest for this?
Yeah. The point is that the point that I was making earlier was that there are so many impersonalists.
Yes.
We use the Bhagavad Gita to preach, but they don't accept Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead.
Yeah.
Now, for those of us who are worshiping Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, it behooves us to generate ideas. We should use those people as a motivating factor to be able to go into the field and see how we can present Krishna as he is.
Yes, that's true. That's beautiful. And so, are there, say, for example, you said we can give a better understanding of Krishna. So, one thing is self transformation, or say addressing social issues. So, if we call this as more like utilitarian philosophy or utilitarian spirituality, people are interested in that right now. And but we are interested in, say, in giving transcendental philosophy, in a sense that we want people to connect with Krishna as a person and develop love for him. So are the people who are interested in utilitarian philosophy, how likely are they to come to the transcendental philosophy? Or just they're accepting utilitarian philosophy is also a good thing and we can be satisfied with that?
Yeah, you see, what happens is that the preacher should be making relationships.
Okay.
The preacher should be making relationships. Either you're moving around trying to plant the seeds of the Bhagavad Gita philosophy or the Vedanta philosophy, we should be friendly. By being friendly, people come close to us and they will learn our ideas, our way of operation, our manner of operation, our lifestyle, and they will become friends. They will want to do what we are doing. They will want to follow our lifestyle. They will want to study our philosophy on a deeper level. So the watchword there is that we should try to be in this position when we be which person, we should create an avenue where we are reachable, that we are accessible, and we don't create a purple bull of demarcation between the big guy and the small guy. Otherwise, if that accessibility is there, then very easily, people come to learn about you and they'll see you as their friend and their loved one and not just their authority. Nobody likes authority in the 21st century. You think people like Trump?
Okay. Yeah.
So we may have very powerful philosophy, but we should also be friendly. We should be accessible. And that way people come close to us and someone will decide, like that lady in the office, I want to be like you. Teach me how to be like you. That's how it works.
So you're saying that, in one sense, if you envision it like a pyramid or a funnel, then the academic outreach creates the awareness and helps provides the opportunity to develop relationships. And it is through those relationships that people will grow.
Sure.
Yes. Yes, man. I think that's...
See, I'll give you an example. Chaitanya, I'll give you an example. In the early days, when I started publishing in academic journals, I was dealing with a professor. He was the head of department for classics and the editor-in-chief of a multidisciplinary and a multicultural journal. So in the early period, he had a lot of interest in my works to the point that he wanted me to give him to present a study or a paper for all volumes of his journal. That's a very challenging task. But the point is that I was very friendly with all of his office people, his secretaries, and everything else. So each time I'm going there, I will make sure at some point in time the relationship became very close. So I was bound to ensure that each time I'm going there, I get some, I take some prasad from the from the restaurant to be able to give to the secretaries and to the editor-in-chief. But you know what? The effect of that was that it came to a point that if I go to that office without any prasadam, the first thing that even the professor will ask is, where is it? Where is the prasadam?
Okay.
And that professor, he helped us so much. You can't talk any ill about the Hare Krishnas in his presence. You cannot. And he's not a devotee. He's not a Bhakti, he's not a Bhakti Vedantist. As a professor of classical studies, he loved Prabhupada's teachings. He would want to be like, live in the temple, but, he had a big family. One of his children was even a medical doctor. I remember one time he told me, oh, Vasudev, now I've seen your secrets. Because you are celibate, so that's why you're very proficient in your writing. All right, this weekend, I'm not going home. I want to be celibate. I want to be detached.
That's amazing.
So he didn't go home after school on Friday. And on Monday, he told me that I was trying to be like you, but unfortunately, my wife came on Saturday and bullied me out of the office to the house.
Oh God, okay.
So he could tell me all those type of deep social, interactive affairs in his family because of our relationship. So my point is that when we are preaching, we should understand at the back of our mind that relationship building is very important to enabling people to become lovers of Krishna or lovers of the devotees.
Yes. This is a very sweet way to a concluding point. Ultimately, people can experience love for Krishna through the love that they get with devotees. And everything that we do is meant to get them to that point. Maharaj, I'll quickly try to summarize, and then if you have any concluding words. So we discussed today on the topic of taking bhakti wisdom into the management leadership field. So you shared your journey, how it started with Bhaktivedanta Maharaj's instruction, and then you're able to publish like 25 papers in 3 years. So basically, we mentioned that in the academic world, we need to have the language and the skills, otherwise we won't be respected. And if we are able to present our wisdom in a way that addresses today's problems, then there is a whole universe open over there. And especially in qualitative research, phenomenological approach, we can actually, it's mainly a way of understanding our texts, studying the contemporary issues, and then applying for solving solving specific problems. If we do that, then there is a big area in this field, big opportunity in this field. And this field has not been that well explored. Even if there are devotees in that field, they're not really got into bringing about that dialogue between, say, Bhagavad Gita and modern criminology or modern issues. And for those who want to do this kind of thing, on one side, the leadership needs to be less myopic, and the devotees need to become more expert in creating space for themselves. And then finally, you talked about how ultimately to get people from that utilitarian philosophy to the transcendental, it's going to be the relationships that we develop. So we may give impressive wisdom, but we need to be accessible to people. And that relationship, by observing us, by being with us, they will want to take up bhakti, and then they can also experience Krishna. So thank you very much for your time and your wisdom. So if any devotees are interested in this area, so can they, for guidance, can they contact you through your website?
Sure.
Through your website, they can contact you?
You have my phone number. You can also give them my email. My email is bvs.bts8@gmail.com. bvs.bts8
okay.
@gmail.com.
Yes, Maharaj. Thank you very much
So
for giving us
I'm a liberal guy. I'm a liberal, Swami. They should feel free to contact me.
Okay. Thank you very much. It was wonderful having you on the Monks podcast. Thank you. Hare
Thank you.
Krishna.
Hare Krishna.